The air in the Richmond courtroom was thick enough to choke on, a fetid brew of stale coffee, cheap perfume, and palpable tension. Officer James Dale, a man whose sneer seemed surgically attached to his face, surveyed the packed public gallery like a predator sizing up prey. His gaze snagged on a black woman seated quietly in the back row. She was dressed in a simple, dark pantsuit, her hair pulled back severely, her face unadorned, projecting an aura of quiet dignity that Dale, in his infinite arrogance, mistook for insignificance. "Well, what have we here?" Dale drawled, his voice loud enough to turn heads. "A high school reunion for the ghetto girls? That cheap suit and that attitude? You look ridiculous, sweetheart." He sauntered towards her, his uniform button straining over his paunch. The woman didn't flinch, her expression unreadable. This was Colonel Evelyn Washington, a decorated, recently retired Marine Corps officer, though Dale couldn't possibly know that. Not yet. He reached her, his shadow falling over her. "This ain't your block party, lady. This is a court of law. People like you don't belong here unless you're in cuffs." Judge Hollowell, perched on his bench like a vulture awaiting carrion, watched with a smirk, offering no intervention. His silence was a familiar, chilling endorsement of Dale's thuggery. Dale's hand shot out, grabbing the collar of Evelyn's jacket. "I think it's time for you to leave. Don't want you stinking up the place." He tugged, expecting her to stumble, to cry out, to cower. Instead, Evelyn Washington remained rooted to her seat, her body as unyielding as the steel in her spine, forged in years of military discipline. Her eyes, the color of hardened obsidian, met his. There was no fear in them, only an unnerving, assessing calm. Slowly, deliberately, she reached into her purse. Dale tensed, expecting a weapon. What emerged was a smartphone. With an almost imperceptible movement of her thumb, she activated the camera, the lens pointing directly at Dale's contorted face, his hand still gripping her collar. The small red recording light was a silent, damning witness. Just 3 weeks prior, in a sterile, high-ceilinged office at the state police headquarters, Evelyn Washington had accepted her new, groundbreaking appointment, Inspector General for the state police, tasked with rooting out corruption and misconduct. Her reputation as a Marine colonel, a woman who had commanded respect in the harshest of environments, preceded her. The governor had personally chosen her, hoping her outsider status and unblemished record could pierce the blue wall of silence that protected officers like Dale. Evelyn knew Dale's file intimately. It was a litany of excessive force complaints, racial profiling allegations, and miraculously dismissed internal reviews. He was a cancer within the Richmond PD, shielded by a system that valued loyalty over integrity. She had decided her first unofficial act would be to observe him in his natural habitat, Judge Hollowell's courtroom, a place rumored to be where justice went to die if you were poor and black. Back in the courtroom, Dale, momentarily thrown by the phone, tightened his grip. "You think that little toy scares me? Trying to intimidate an officer of the law? That's another charge right there, lady," he snarled, spittle flying. "Who the hell do you think you are, anyway? Coming in here, disrespecting this court, disrespecting me? You think you're some important person?" Evelyn's voice, when it finally came, was low, steady, and cut through Dale's bluster like a honed blade. "Actually, Officer Dale," she began, each word precise, "I am." Slowly, deliberately, she rose to her full height. Even in flat shoes, she seemed to tower over the sputtering Dale. From her inner jacket pocket, she retrieved a slim leather case. She flipped it open, revealing a gleaming gold badge, the insignia of the Inspector General, and her official state identification card. Simultaneously, with her other hand, she presented a folded document, its crisp official letterhead clearly visible. Colonel Evelyn Washington, United States Marine Corps, retired, she announced, her voice resonating with a command authority that silenced the entire courtroom. Reporters scrambled, their cameras flashing. And as of 0800 hours this Monday passed, Inspector General for the State Police, Commonwealth of Virginia. She paused, letting the weight of her words sink in. Her eyes locked onto Dale's, which had widened in dawning, horrified comprehension. "Which, Officer Dale, makes me your new commanding officer in matters of internal discipline. And you, Detective Dale, are hereby suspended, pending a full investigation into your conduct." The sting of Dale's casual cruelty in the courtroom wasn't just professional for Evelyn, it was deeply, searingly personal. 12 years ago, her younger sister, Maya, a bright, spirited community activist, had her life irrevocably shattered by Dale. Maya had been organizing a peaceful protest against police brutality in their old neighborhood. Dale, then a beat cop with a reputation for a heavy hand, had instigated a confrontation, falsely accusing Maya of assaulting an officer. The arrest report was a work of fiction, a narrative Dale had spun many times before. Judge Hollowell, even then a gatekeeper of injustice, had presided over the swift, merciless trial. Maya, unable to afford a competent lawyer, was railroaded, convicted on Dale's perjured testimony. She was sentenced to 2 years in a notoriously rough state prison. 6 months into her sentence, Evelyn received the call that every soldier dreads, not from a battlefield, but from home. Maya was dead, found hanged in her cell. The official verdict, suicide. Evelyn never believed it. At the time, Evelyn was Major Washington, serving a distinguished tour in Afghanistan, earning a Bronze Star for valor under fire. She had faced down enemy combatants, led her Marines through hell, and returned home a decorated officer. Yet, she had been powerless to protect her own sister from the very system she had sworn an oath to uphold by serving her country. The grief and rage fueled a new, unyielding resolve. Upon retiring as a full colonel, Evelyn had declined lucrative private sector offers. Her mission was singular: to dismantle the corrupt structures that had murdered her sister and countless others. She meticulously prepared, earning a law degree focused on civil rights, then applying for the Inspector General position. It was a long shot, but her military record, combined with her fierce intellect and unimpeachable integrity, had impressed the reform-minded governor. For years, even while serving, Evelyn had covertly gathered information. She built a network of informants, disillusioned clerks, junior officers disgusted by the corruption, even former victims. She learned the system's weak points, how evidence was lost, how internal investigations were whitewashed. Digital breadcrumbs, hushed confessions, and leaked documents painted a damning picture of Dale and Hollowell's symbiotic relationship, a partnership built on mutual protection and the ruins of innocent lives. The fight for Maya had become a fight for everyone ensnared by their web. Dale's hand, still clutching Evelyn's jacket, went slack. The bravado drained from his face, replaced by a sickly, greenish pallor. The courtroom was a tomb, the only sound the frantic clicking of press cameras. This is some kind of joke, right?" Dale stammered, his eyes darting towards Judge Hollowell for a lifeline. But Hollowell merely stared, his usual composure cracking, for the first time looking like a man who had massively miscalculated. Evelyn retrieved a small, encrypted audio player from her purse. "No joke, Officer Dale. Just accountability." She pressed a button. Dale's voice, arrogant and conspiratorial, filled the courtroom, amplified by a small speaker she produced. "Yeah, the black girl, Maya Washington. Hollowell said to make sure the charges stick. Bury her deep. No loose ends." The recording continued, capturing Dale and another, yet unidentified officer, discussing how to falsify the report on Maya's arrest. Gasps rippled through the gallery. Evelyn didn't stop there. She signaled to an aide who had discreetly entered, a young tech-savvy Marine reservist from her old unit. He connected a laptop to the courtroom's display system. A split screen appeared. On one side, Dale's official arrest reports for several controversial cases. On the other, time-stamped server logs and original, unaltered body cam footage he'd claimed was corrupted or lost. The discrepancies were blatant, irrefutable proof of systematic evidence tampering. Footage showed Dale planting evidence, physically assaulting suspects already in handcuffs, and callously discussing quotas. "This is an outrage. A circus. Judge Hollowell finally thundered, banging his gavel. "This evidence is unverified, improperly presented. I demand you cease this spectacle, Madam Inspector General, or I will have you held in contempt." Evelyn met his furious gaze without a flicker. "With all due respect, Your Honor," she stated, her voice ringing with cold authority, "I believe this federal warrant, signed this morning by Judge Harrison of the U.S. District Court, supersedes your objections." She produced another document, its federal seal prominent. "It authorizes the seizure of all case files and digital records related to Officer Dale and any cases you have presided over involving him for the past 15 years. Hollowell sank back into his chair as if struck. The press erupted. Dale looked like he was about to collapse. Evelyn Washington stood tall, a solitary figure of righteous retribution. "For too long, this courtroom, and others like it, have been stages for injustice, shielded by silence and complicity," she declared, her voice now addressing not just the court, but the wider world watching through the lens of the media. "Today, that silence is broken. This isn't about personal revenge, though the shadows of the past are long. This is about restoring faith in a system that has profoundly failed its citizens. It's about ensuring that the color of your skin or the contents of your wallet do not determine the quality of justice you receive. My oath as a Marine was to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. That oath did not expire with my retirement. The fallout was immediate and seismic. Within hours, Officer James Dale was formally indicted on multiple counts, including perjury, evidence tampering, and assault under color of law. Judge Hollowell, facing a federal investigation and the undeniable evidence presented by Evelyn, tendered his resignation before impeachment proceedings could begin. The carefully constructed dam of corruption had burst, and the floodwaters of accountability were sweeping through the Richmond justice system. Inspector General Evelyn Washington did not rest. Her first official act was to assemble a task force, a blend of incorruptible veteran detectives, sharp young internal affairs investigators, and, controversially but effectively, several retired military intelligence analysts from her former command. Their mandate was clear, a top-to-bottom review of every case Dale had touched and every ruling Hollowell had made in conjunction with him. The sheer scale of the deception they uncovered was staggering. Dozens of wrongful convictions, coerced pleas, and buried complaints came to light. Evelyn personally oversaw the re-examination of her sister Maya's case. The suicide was quickly reclassified as a suspicious death, and evidence emerged pointing to Dale having orchestrated an attack on Maya in prison shortly before she died, an attack covered up by compliant prison officials. While the exact circumstances remained murky, the original conviction was overturned posthumously, a small, heartbreaking measure of justice. The investigation's tendrils reached further, ensnaring Assistant District Attorney Marcus Langston, who was found to have deliberately suppressed exculpatory evidence in several of Dale's cases in exchange for political favors and campaign contributions from the police union. He too faced indictment. Evelyn Washington became a reluctant public figure. Media requests poured in, but she granted few interviews. When she did speak, her message was consistent. "This is not the work of one person, but the failure of a system," she stated at a rare press conference. "My team and I are committed to identifying and removing those who betray their oath. I swore an oath to the Constitution as a Marine, and I reaffirm that oath now, to ensure justice is blind, fair, and accessible to all, regardless of their station or background. We are not just cleaning house, we are rebuilding its very foundations." Her steely determination and military precision in tackling the deeply entrenched corruption earned her both admirers and powerful new enemies, but Evelyn Washington was undeterred. The mission was underway. 6 months later, with Dale and Hollowell awaiting trial and Langston's career in ruins, the initial storm had passed. Evelyn Washington, true to her word, had initiated deep, structural reforms within the state police and worked with the judiciary to implement new oversight protocols. But her most personal tribute to Maya was quieter. In the heart of the neighborhood where they grew up, the same community Maya had died trying to protect, Evelyn used her own savings and funds from a modest civil settlement for Maya's wrongful death to establish Maya's Voice Legal Aid Center. She didn't run it herself, her duties as Inspector General were too demanding. But she was its guiding spirit. The small, unassuming office had 3 items prominently displayed on its main wall: a framed photograph of a smiling Maya, Evelyn's own decorated Marine Corps uniform encased in glass, and a copy of her Inspector General's commission. Symbols of love, service, and an unyielding commitment to justice. One afternoon, a young black girl, an intern at the center, asked Evelyn, "Colonel Washington, ma'am, after all you've seen, all they did, how do you keep fighting? Aren't you ever tired?" Evelyn looked at the girl, seeing a spark of Maya in her eyes. She smiled, a rare, gentle expression. "Fatigue is a luxury we can't always afford, young lady," she said softly. "When a system fails the people it's sworn to protect, those of us who still believe in its ideals have a duty to become its conscience, its reformers. My sister believed that. I believe that. When the system fails you, you don't give up on justice. You become the one who fights to change the system." Her gaze drifted to her uniform, then to Maya's picture. The battlefront had changed, but the oath, the core mission, remained the same: to serve, to protect, to ensure that no voice seeking justice would ever again be silenced.